So Ford Maverick, yes, Ford Maverick, wouldn't throw in a catch can, but I would definitely order one. You can still get a Ford Maverick. You might even find one. People are occasionally finding one in inventory. Some places won't charge over MSRP, but the key to getting a Ford Maverick and getting it at the right price is probably going to be an order, but you need to order it right. Order it from a dealership that will put in an email, in writing, roughly how many allocations they're getting for the year and what number you are on their list. If they tell you we're getting 10 Mavericks this year and then, tell you you're number 32, well, you can imagine that's looking like a 3-year wait. Avoid them. Some dealers won't want to talk about that at all. Well, either you have a sales guy or gal that just doesn't quite know what they're talking about. You can ask them, well, can you ask your manager? Can I speak to your manager and ask the manager these questions? And if they just really don't want to tell you and they kind of have an attitude of that's not none of your business, well, that means they're in a bad spot, or they're just not a very service oriented place, and you don't want to order from that place. Go order from somewhere that can actually tell you, hey, you know what, we're going to get about 32 Mavericks this year. We've got right now 15 that have kind of carried over and new orders, so you'd be number roughly 16 or 17. That's the type of place to order from. You're thinking, hey, I'll get this in a relatively fair amount of time. And you can even get a hybrid built this year, because right now in the system, there's roughly about 58, 59,000, maybe 60,000 Maverick orders out there. Maybe ever so slightly more. But remember, Ford's going to be able to build somewhere between 100 to 140,000 Mavericks this year, unless there's a UAW strike. If there's a UAW strike, I've covered the topic before, but I think it's going to last roughly, well, if it's very short, it's, I don't see how things would get resolved. Rather, I'd say there's 5% chance there's no UAW strike and a 95% chance there is a UAW strike. And it's going to come down to who runs out of money first, because the demands are high. They're very high. It works out to, I think, about $150 an hour. That's a big ask. Working, though, 32 hours per week.
It's a good
timing
out for a strike.
Well, no, it's a good timing for a strike in a way, because yes and no. The UAW fund for a strike, there's a lot. And manufacturers, the big three, Ford, Dodge Ram, Ford, Stellantis, I should say, and GM, have had fantastic years in regards to profitability. And inventory is getting high at dealerships. So the problem is the UAW can afford a strike. Ford, Stellantis, and GM can definitely afford a strike. So what's going to get resolved over 10 years? I think it's going to come down to who runs out of money first. Or, instead of, I think it's about 2 months to run out of money for the UAW. And it's about 2 months for inventories to go back down to basically zero. So Ford's got about 2 months inventory, and the UAW's got about 2 months worth of funds. Either they'll find a compromise after 1 month, because both sides are going to be like, we're running out. Or if the UAW doesn't want to buckle at all, because, and I understand, the cost of living has shot up. And I don't know what happened around 1971 or 1972, but inflation and salaries have historically, in the last 100 years, always followed each other. But the cost of living come 1971 skyrocketed. And it's weird, because we went towards a global economy. We went into globalization. And do we have the same standard of living as we did in 1970? No, we don't have the same standard of living that we had in 1970. We've been, you could say in a way, the cost of living has gone up many times more than inflation and salaries. Inflation's followed salaries perfectly, but the cost of living has gone up a tremendous amount, meaning your money does less, because most of your money goes towards what? Taxes. A ton of money goes towards taxes. They tax your salary, and then they tax you when you buy something in most states. And here, 15% tax when you buy something, after they've taken maybe 42% of your overall salary, making, that's a lot of salary. What is that, like 63% tax? I don't feel like, I'm in no mood to do math right now because I'm on a rant. So I'm seeing foggy right now. But the cost of living has gone up, meaning you get less from your money. Taxes have gone way up. You remember, I've talked about this in previous episodes. Income tax was supposed to only be created to help pay for the war. And surprisingly, income tax is still there. And, there's no world war going on. So no major war going on globally. Mm-hmm. So with the cost of living going up, we have our dollars go less far, meaning you have less choice, less freedom. And at a certain point where you have very little freedom, well then, it's just a form of, invisible credit slavery. Maybe we're not there yet, but some people, I think, I've had $35,000 of credit debt before, and it was like $800 of interest per month. And I was making, after taxes and everything, maybe $1,700 per month. I was essentially, I got myself out of kind of a credit slave situation. All my money was going towards taxes, and my debt was still at $35,000 because, I'd put $900 down, but when $800 goes down to paying just the interest, I was never getting myself out of debt. So I had to make some major changes. Yep. Things are pretty good now, but
speaking about the strike, Car Question Answered was asking, is your dealership doing anything to prepare for possible strike? Can be prepared for that? That's a good question.
Yes, that is an incredible question. Mm-hmm. Dealers, unfortunately, I don't want dealers to prepare for a strike, because preparing for a strike means holding on to more of your inventory. And how do you hold on to more of your inventory? You throw in dealer fees, you throw in documentation fees, you add in a market adjustment fee. And I fear that if the strike, I think the major, the big three, fantastic question, by the way, and thank you so much, Brandon from Car Questions Answered, being here. Fantastic show. Love your show. I think the big three have more, unless the UAW is willing to have a pretty big compromise. I think it's easy for the big three to just say, you know what? If our dealerships run out of inventory, people are just gonna, yes, the volume sales will go down. On paper, temporarily, it'll be kind of pretty darn bad, but there'll be a lot of orders that get put into the system. And that means money later on. And it also, we saw in the last 2 years, what did very low inventories mean? It meant an opportunity for dealerships to overcharge, and then manufacturers increase their MSRPs to help two things. One, for as a manufacturer, it's like, well, why are we letting the dealership make this extra profit? They shouldn't be making it. They knew the dealers were making it. So it makes it a lot easier for them to increase their prices. I think the big three have the bigger end of the stick. Even though the UAW has a ton of money to go into a strike, I think if they go into a strike, there is a good likelihood that after a month things get resolved if the UAW is willing to really back off on their full demands. And they just threw in a counter offer. So they had thrown in it's going back and forth. Originally, what they asked for from the big three was pretty much flat out refused. A counteroffer was made. The president of the UAW just threw in the trash the offer, so you could tell that it was looking like it was way off. But now there's been a counteroffer, and we'll wait to find out Ford, Stellantis, and GM's reaction to that counteroffer. But I'd say there's good chances that I think the wise thing might be to have a bit of a strike, but I think the big three can definitely handle doing a strike for 2 months, and then the UAW is going to be out of funds. It's going to be horrible for us as buyers because dealerships are going to naturally try to hold on to their inventory. I can tell you my dealership, I've already seen it. We're going to just allow our inventory to go to zero and then expect the sales team to be very professional and help people understand that, hey, we ran out of inventory because we continued to sell at the right price. And now we're out of inventory. We're good guys. Now help us out, throw in an order, and we promise you, here's our written signature. When your order comes in, you're going to also buy at the right price. You're going to lock in and freeze that price that's there right now. You're not going to get a bad surprise. It's not going to show up and we're going to say, hey, look, we have no inventory, so we're adding 5,000. No, it's your order. You'll pay it from the price that
So
depending where you are on the list, because right now an F-150 is only a month and a half to get. A Maverick like this one was 8 months. This was ordered back in October, so almost a year.
yeah, so again, it's the only victim of that will be the customer again.
At certain
They won't have
dealerships.
inventory to buy, or they will buy it at a much higher price. So
Yeah.
it's not the dealership that will be affected that much by the strike. It will be more the customer.
At a good dealership, your Maverick worked out to be extremely advantageous for you because yes, you waited a very long time, but Ford gave you a special rebate. You were in a situation because my Bronco came in, we thought it'd be a year to get a wild track Bronco. It took 3 months, 3.5 months.
Yeah,
So
it's not supposed to be like that.
but you made your Maverick paid you money. Like you got paid to have that for a few months. So low inventory can, in a lot of dealerships, yes, the consumer will be paying for this. I'd say at good dealerships, the consumer will be inconvenienced, but that it'll still work out pretty darn good for, low inventory also means trade values going back up. Bad if you're in a situation where you've got a $500 beater used vehicle and you're going to be shopping for, let's say, a $30,000 or $20,000 used vehicle, because likely that $20,000 used vehicle, we're going to see the same thing we saw a few years ago when new inventory goes next to zero, or even, sometimes people are really stuck on, I want a red F-150. Well, I'll get the 1 or 2 year old F-150 on the used instead. So you got new clients going over to the used. The used inventories will go down and it will cause trade-ins to go up, but it'll also cause used prices to go up as well. So I think there are going to be a lot of negative points to this unless it only lasts a month. If we have a month, our inventories at dealerships at Jeep, sorry, not Jeep, Stellantis, that's Jeep, Chrysler. I don't feel like listing off the list. I'm tired. They've got a lot underneath the brand, but Stellantis, GM, and Ford, we have inventories that can handle 1 month strike with very little. There shouldn't be any change. Like no one should be saying, oh, well, this strike has lasted 1 week, we're boosting up their prices. What some dealerships might say is, hey, this strike is going to last, or it could last a very long time. So if you want this vehicle in inventory, yeah, we're adding 2,000 or 3,000. And that's not just the big three right now. If you want, a lot of Toyota dealerships have a lot of, they're not calling it markups, but they're hidden markups. You're paying, $5,000-$6,000 for $1,000 worth or $1,500 worth of stuff. So I'd say that's my full review of what's going down on the UAW strike. As well, just to wrap up, I never did a full end to episode 2. We just kind of jumped into episode 3, but the end and conclusion for episode 2 was order up a Maverick. It's a fantastic truck. It will come in, and it'll almost certainly come in as a 2024.